How's it going, everyone? Just out here, I'm putting in one of these cell links. So I've had a little bit of experience with this, and I've learned a few lessons the hard way. So I just want to go through some of the things that I've done here that should make this setup work for you. So the first thing that I learned the hard way is that when you close the camera, if you don't have the right camera, and in fact I don't think there's a camera that this would even work with without altering it a little bit, it's very easy to pinch it. It's a very small wire, and if it gets pinched by the door on your camera when you close it, it's going to break it. You're not going to get any pictures back. So the first thing that I've done is alter my trail camera a little bit. So I'll show you that here. So I've set it up where the door here, when it closes, it won't pinch on this cable. So I'm gonna go ahead and insert the SD card up into here. Okay, so you'll see I have the SD card in here now, mounted up into there. And when I close this door here, you'll see that this swings forward and closed. And now I can lock the door, and that cable won't get pinched. So I'm gonna open it back up, take a real close look here. You'll see that there's no kink there. Nothing got broke. Everything's still looking really good. So the other thing I learned is that you want to be really careful to make sure you don't get water in either your camera or the Cell-Link. Now I showed you I cut a hole in the bottom of that door, so I want to make sure that no water makes its way into there. So what I've done with the placement of these two is that I've got them where they're about at the same level. And the reason you want to do that, so now that I have it pretty much set up how it's going to be, I'm going to show you the cable here. So as you can see, the cable comes down out of our Cell-Link, goes down, and then comes back up into the trail camera. Now why that's important is water's going to get onto this cable, and it's going to run down to here. You see, I can show you here on the cable. And it's going to just drip off of it and drip down and not get into any of the components. Now, one of the other things I learned is that even with lithium batteries in here, these Cell-Links, they won't last hardly a month or two. And that really surprised me because I've had a couple of their micros, and those things have gone for over a year with lithium batteries in it. So it's a little disappointed by that, but I had kind of figured, I mean, they even give you a warning when you turn on send every picture when it gets captured option in the options. So when you turn that on, it says this could deplete your battery quickly. Make sure you use an external battery. So that's what I've done here. So this is the battery box I came up with. It's just got two batteries in there. They come out the side here through a panel mount barrel plug. That runs up through a cable and into my Cell-Link. So if you look here, I'll show you, I don't even have batteries in there. But when I turn it on, and I don't know if you can see it or not, let me get in there a little closer. It's flashing, all the batteries are, or it's got, I'll make a liar out of me, why don't you? So I'm in here, I don't know if you can see it very well. It's really bright out here, but those lights in there are flashing. So there's no batteries in there. It's running strictly off the battery box. And I expect it hopefully to last like 6 months. I'd be pretty happy with that. Okay, so one of the things I've learned about settings, and because these things, they send back a thumbnail, it's not particularly detailed. So you want to get the deer in close so you don't have to request a high definition picture on every single one. To do that, I've pointed it towards the trail a bit closer than where I normally would. So I'm going to catch them about 10 to 15 feet away. So with that distance, I should be able to tell pretty well, you know, what sort of buck I'm looking at without having to request a high definition picture. So to accommodate that, I'm going to set the sensitivity on the camera low. And the reason for that is I want them to be fully in the picture before it snaps a picture to send back to me. I don't want to catch just the very front part of their body. So and then the other, so also because I also set the sensitivity low, so that I don't get a whole lot of pictures. If I do get a little bit where you get a branch that's moving in the sun and it's making the camera fire, I want to make sure the sensitivity's low so I don't get a bunch of pictures of moving leaves. And the other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to set it to a 5-minute delay in between pictures, so that if something like that does happen, hopefully it'll at least cut down on the number of pictures it sends back. Unlike my Spartan that I have to, with SpyPoint, you have to pay for every picture pretty much. I mean, they have plans that you get a certain amount, but every picture you take goes towards your quota. So that's the one thing I don't like about this plan as compared to my Spartan, where I have it on my Verizon cell phone plan. But so to deal with that, I want to make sure I don't get a whole lot of pictures back. I'm only setting these cameras on trails where I know the deer are going to come through. They're not going to linger. They're not going to sit there and eat. If anything like that, I'm going to set my Spartan on it. So that's some of the things I do to make sure I don't have to pay for too many pictures. Now the last thing with the setup that I just remembered is that when you get these cables and they're barrel plugs, pretty sure it's 5.5 by 2.1 millimeter. I can correct that in a note below if that's wrong. But when you get them, typically the rubber on the back side of them is too long. So the metal part that inserts into the camera, it's not going to reach all the way. You're not going to get good contact. I learned that the hard way when I first set one of these up. And I had the external battery. I couldn't figure out why this thing had died after 2 months. And I got in there, and sure enough, the battery box was still completely charged. It had never discharged anything to the camera, or well, to the Cell-Link. So to combat that with the setup I have now, I took the cables and I just stripped back a bit of the rubber so that the metal part of that barrel plug sticks in further. So if you have a utility knife, you can run right along the bottom here. So I took off like a 1/4 inch, and that's all I needed. Now it inserts completely all the way to the bottom. I can even tug on it a little bit. It's not coming out. So should be good now. I'm expecting to get pictures back from this thing, not have any issues. Like I said, hopefully I'll get about 6 months, and I'll be happy with that. And I just thought of one more thing. This goes in general with every trail camera I put out. You never want to leave anything loose and dangling, flopping around and having the wind blow it. That is a surefire way to get animals to come and investigate your setup. So if you ever had a picture with a deer sniffing your camera, a raccoon coming over and taking a look at it, and it's been days, weeks since you've been in there shouldn't be any scent on it. I really think that's why. Those animals see something that looks out of place. One time I was hunting, and my rope I used to pull up my bow, I had just left it dangling. And I had some does coming in, and this little one walked right up to my stand because it wanted to sniff on that rope that was hanging down. And as soon as it got over there and sniffed my scent on it, they all took off running. So don't leave anything dangling, and I'll show you what I mean with that. So my cable I have here comes up and goes in. It goes from the battery box down here, and it runs up into the Cell-Link. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this is really tight and flush up against the tree. And then on the back side, I've already done that with the strap off the camera and the strap off the Cell-Link. So anything you can to try to make things so they look at the least amount of out of place as possible, you want to go ahead and do that. The last thing I'm going to do while I'm out here, I've got this liquid electrical tape. I'm going to go ahead in the area that I cut out, I'm going to put this in there around the cable that goes into the trail camera and just try to make it as watertight as possible. This isn't a great solution, but it is really one of the few ways I can think of to seal that area off and not have to worry about water intrusion. And with that, got it pretty much set up. You know, I mean, that takes considerably longer to set up than one of my Spartans or even one of the micros. But I mean, I had some trail cameras and I wanted to make them cell cameras, so it was a fairly cheap way to do that. The worst part was the trail cameras that I had that I was using this on originally, they went bad. So I ended up having to buy 2 regular trail cameras anyway, so I probably didn't come out ahead. But it's fun, it's interesting. I like to do projects like this, so if I get some good pictures from this camera between now and when I cut this, I'll go ahead and put them at the end of the video.
Casting lies, telling lies, cold October day. Drinking beer, trying not to hear the words he has to say. Come on boys, watch a salmon run. It's headed for the trout hole, and Mountain got his gun.